A very warm welcome to the Help AG Security Spotlight Forum. This is our quarterly event where we talk about some of the hot cybersecurity topics that we're exposed to on a day-to-day basis. We didn't come to you last quarter, and that was mainly due to the pandemic, and we had to find a new way of how to communicate these events for you. I'm glad to see so many registrations at the event here today, because it tells me something about that, the topic that we have chosen to talk about today, which is all about secure cloud, and also the Security Spotlight Forum is really, really interesting for you. We have more than 250 registrations coming to us from all over the UAE and KSA, so welcome to all of you. Before we get started on the presentation, I just want to take a moment to talk to you about some of the extremely exciting times that we're living in, also on a personal level. If I look at what is happening today around digital transformations within organizations, I think it's the first time ever in history that IT has impacted the day-to-day operations of organizations in this way. You know, I've been through a number of technical waves over time, but I can fairly safely say that today digital transformation is really changing the way organizations are operating. Digital transformation is to a large extent powered by cloud environments and the technology that cloud is delivering to us. So the digital transformation that we're doing on a day-by-day for customers, and you are doing in your organizations, would really not have been able to happen unless we had the technologies that we're going to talk about now. I'm going to talk primarily around how do we ensure a secure cloud journey, because I do believe that while cloud is exciting as a topic and it's exciting from a technology perspective, security is actually a day zero job in a cloud environment. And obviously that is something that is very dear to Help AG. To those of you who do not know Help AG, where it's the first time you interact with Help AG, just a quick introduction to myself. My name is Nicolai Solling, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer in Help AG. If you've been to one of the Security Spotlight forums in the past, you will hopefully recognize me, because I am the guy who normally takes care of making sure that we change sessions between the different speakers at the event. A little bit about Help AG as well. You know, Help AG has been established in the Middle East for a number of years, and I hope that many of you recognize us as one of the leading cybersecurity players in the market. Actually, with the growth that Help AG has experienced over the last couple of years, we are today one of the top 10 globally even. And that is, of course, an achievement that we're extremely proud of. We got acquired by Etisalat Digital towards the start of 2020. And today we are the cybersecurity arm of Etisalat Digital. That's, of course, a development that we're extremely proud around, and that we're also very excited about taking forward. We serve the entire security value chain, so it's not just about cloud security, but also many of the elements that you need in a more classical IT environment, and also the consultancy services that you need in order to think about information security in a better way. We're located in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Riyadh. So even though we have our placement amongst the top 10 cybersecurity consultancy companies in the world, we are really local to you. And that's, of course, one of the strengths that we have been taking into the market over the years. Good. So let's now get started on the topic. So I have a question for you. Why cloud? You know, why not just carry on the way that we used to do stuff? But I would then say, why not? And then I will hopefully also be able to cover during the session here, but also during the slides, the sessions later on today, we'll cover a little bit about how do you achieve that kind of cloud environment in a secure cloud environment. There's many reasons why cloud is interesting. So first of all, I think this is one of the reasons why we're looking at cloud in the first place. It delivers us agility and the ability to change our applications. It also delivers financial flexibility, because in cloud, you do not pay for something that you're not utilizing. And that again translates into the ability to scale, because you can scale up and down the way that you want to do in the cloud. Another key element that you get with cloud is availability. So the way that cloud structures have been architected and deployed around the world means that there's a high level of availability of the infrastructure that's powering cloud environment. And that goes everything from the way that the data centers are built, to the connectivity to the data centers, to how power is fed into those data centers. There's a lot of resilience in that. As you move towards multi-cloud, which I'm sure that a lot of you in the audience today are thinking about, availability is also maybe not just depending on one specific cloud provider, but going multi-cloud. So I believe that multi-cloud is really one of the things that we'll be talking a lot about in the coming years as our cloud journeys are all evolving. And then finally, maybe a little bit provocative, but I also think that security in the cloud can potentially be much better. But it's also one of the challenges that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So one of the drivers of cloud, at least here in the last, let's say 8-9 months, has really been the pandemic that we're currently living through. So the pandemic caused a situation where businesses had to reinvent how they were interacting with their clients and how you were interacting on a day-to-day basis, because the concept of a physical presence of store or a hotel, or how you would be interacting with your clients, right, would not happen in the same way. This specific event is a good example of how we are trying to transform how we interact with you in our Security Spotlight Forum, where we're now going virtual instead of out there shaking hands with you and meeting you around the coffee machine and the pastries in the buffet. But the pandemic has really caused a situation where we had to reevaluate these things, and that meant that in a very, very short period of time, all of you were challenged with how do you ensure that your business can go on. One of the reasons why you were able to deliver on a lot of these promises to your management was the fact that you could utilize some of the scalability and flexibility of the cloud environments. So what we're witnessing is not really just it's really a revolution of how we think about IT and how we think about IT supporting the business on a day-to-day basis. It's not just an evolution. And I can tell you this revolution would not have been able unless we had cloud environments to allow us to scale and also utilize some of the new technologies in those environments. So I think most of you here in the audience today, you're already living through this revolution. And I know for myself that it has been a very, very interesting journey, also from a learning experience, because so many things are fundamentally different in the cloud as it is in our classical IT environments. When I look at the customers we're talking to around cloud security, there's really two distinct types of customers. There's the ones that are born in the cloud, who never knew anything else than the cloud. And then there's the ones who's now moving into the cloud. And there's actually a big difference in the requirements from these two different kinds of customers. The ones that are born in the cloud, they have always used cloud environments. And when they started out and utilizing cloud, it was because it was available, it was cheap, it was cost effective to deploy services in cloud. And they had a specific business idea that they might want to test out and be able to utilize. And security might not have been the primary concern for them. If we take an example of Uber, they also had a first customer at some point of time. And when that first customer utilized the application, I'm certain that security was not so good back then as it was today. We know that also because Uber have had a number of challenges around how they protected their data, which of course they're much better at doing now than they were before. But the customers that are really moving into the cloud right now, that is the established enterprises within the business field. And you guys have a completely different set of requirements because you already have an ongoing business. You're already dealing with the cybersecurity of your systems, and moving them into the cloud can be a really, really big leap of faith for you, specifically because the technology and the security that you have built around your applications today and your business processes, they have to be replicated into the cloud. And if you remember before where I talked about how cloud is fundamentally different, that also applies to your cybersecurity. There is really some main roadblocks for how do we deal with cloud security. And, I've kind of put them into 3 different kind of categories. The first one being that there's a big mismatch between what business is requesting from us and then what we can deliver from a security perspective. So how quick can we actually deploy safely our applications into the cloud? And that is constantly a challenge in most environments. The next thing is that there's a very big difference in how security is delivered on cloud versus on-premise. Meaning that you don't take your normal physical infrastructure or your physical firewalls, even if they're in a virtual format, and implement them in the same way in the cloud. Or at least you need to think about how do you maintain that. And you may need to look at different kind of processes of how do you deal with events from your cloud environment in order to make good security decisions. And all of this is something that's challenging the organizations moving into the cloud. And then finally, maybe one of the things or best built enterprise security. And what I mean by that is not that they're doing a bad job, but the way that they think about cloud. So what I was talking about is the 3 main roadblocks for cloud security. First of all, being the speed that management and business they want us to deploy with compared to the speed that we can deploy applications securely in the cloud. The next thing being the difference in the way that IT security and security in specific is delivered in cloud compared to on-premise. And then finally, of course, that cloud does not necessarily come with inbuilt enterprise-grade security, meaning that many of the functionalities that you know from your environments may not be available in the same form factor in the cloud, or at least you need to think about security in a different way in order to make it secure in the cloud. The next thing that you are probably also challenged with is that the future is hybrid. There'll be applications that you'll have on-prem in the future. There's going to be applications that are ripe to move into the cloud and benefit from the capabilities of the cloud environment. And then finally, what I'm talking to a lot of you about is something that we term as private cloud. And private cloud being that you take some of those cloud technologies that you know from the public cloud environment and that was delivered and invented in the cloud environment, like containers and other capabilities. And you take that from the public cloud environment, and then you move them on-prem to what we sometimes coin as private cloud, which means that even your on-prem security needs to change in order to protect these kind of environments. So we're dealing with this whole new set of challenges of how do we stay secure, both on-prem, but also in the public cloud. And that is, of course, super exciting, also from a technological perspective. The cloud security paradox is really that cloud does not really change the requirement for security, but it drastically changes how we deploy it. And I know that the vendors that are here today with us, they will be covering exactly those topics in their presentations. Talking about some of the changes here, if we look at some of the main cloud approaches, and I'm sure that a lot of you out here is fully aware about when I mention these terms. So we have infrastructure as a service, pretty much where you take your on-prem data center and then move it into a virtual format within the cloud environment, and you buy compute and storage from the cloud environment. But apart from that, it is really just a movement of your data center. And that's where a lot of us are today. And then we're looking at also platform as a service, where you go in and utilize some of the platform capabilities in the cloud, whether that is running a container environment in an Azure environment or in Amazon, or if you're utilizing some of these capabilities in the platforms like database services and file storage and object storage. And all of these things are platforms, capabilities that you can utilize in the cloud. And needless to say, it's not the same protecting an infrastructure as a service environment as a platform as a service. We can make it even more abstract by talking about functions in the cloud. So if someone is uploading an image into your application and you want to convert that image into a different format or resize it, or if I'm talking and you want to convert that into text into a system, you'll not be building that kind of intelligence in your own environment, but what you'll be doing is that you'll utilize functions that can deliver you those things in the cloud environments. And needless to say, when you put data into those functions, you also need to think about how do you protect them as well. And then probably the biggest level of abstraction between you and your applications is where we talk about software as a service. Software as a service being the ability of completely moving an application into a software in the cloud. And here you're stuck with the capabilities of that specific configuration on those platforms, because that's all you can potentially do in order to protect your data. And of course, I'm now simplifying everything, but I'm certain that a lot of you have been considering how do you actually protect your data and your applications in these different kind of environments. And the more cloud value you get, the more cloud value you have in your environment, the more disruption of the security controls you will be facing. And when I mean disruption of security controls, it means that you need to think about how do you protect your applications and data. So what is it that we deliver in this space? Well, first of all, we have been going through a cloud journey ourselves. Help AG is to a large extent an organization that is 100% operated in the cloud. And this gives us a lot of experience when we talk to our clients about how our cloud journey has been. But it's also about having the right resources and the right investments in cloud environments to be able to advise you on what you need to do in cloud environments. And that's some of the things that in my office, we're spending a lot of time on making sure that we have the right partners and vendors, as well as the employees, to be able to talk to you about cloud security. So our capabilities is really 360 degrees. It comes from the perspective of analysis and consulting, where our pen testers and our security analysis team, they are already heavily engaged with clients of making sure that their cloud environments and the applications that they're providing in the cloud is actually secure. Or if the SDLC or the software development lifecycle policies, that's really meeting the requirement of cloud. Or how do you integrate your vulnerability scanners and feedback to your developers in the DevSecOps cycle as well. And our consultancy team is very heavily engaged with clients of figuring out which applications can they move into the cloud. Let's be very honest, not every application goes into the cloud in the future. And there will be applications that have such a sensitive set of data that you might not be able to utilize cloud in the same way. Or when you select your cloud, you may need to make sure that it's regionally, that is within region or even within country in order for it to use. And that's all about data classification and understanding the security impact of those regulations covering your organization. Of course, it's also about having the right set of consultancy capabilities around the technology that's sitting in the cloud. And then, of course, also the right partnerships with vendors that deliver relevant cloud security services and products. Afterwards, it's also about making sure that we can support customers as they move into the cloud. And as many of you will know, we are heavily engaged when it comes to managed security services. And I hope that you've had a conversation with us about this space. And of course, today we have customers that are only in the cloud, which means that our SOC services needs to be in the cloud. So understanding the different kind of log formats and event formats, whether it's called CloudTrail or some other messaging format, is really important for our SOC environment. And if a customer is fully in the cloud, of course, we need to be in the cloud with our environment as well. So that is something that we're working heavily on as well and delivering on a day-to-day basis. Needless to say, it's not just cloud and Help AG. We're still able to work with you on your existing IT environments, which will still need maintenance. You'll still need to protect those on-prem devices and on-prem resources as you move forward. And that is the reason why we deliver a 360-degree cybersecurity portfolio. So I think it's just ready. We're just ready to say, ready, steady, cloud.